This lesson is on ordering numbers. And when we have decimals, something that's really helpful to do is to line your numbers up so that all of the place values match up. And that's something that you're going to want to get used to doing when you're adding and subtracting place values anyway. So when we're ordering, it's helpful to do the same, because really what you're doing is you have to make sure that you're comparing certain place values as you go through and order them least to greatest, okay? And we see in this example, we have one place value only comes into the tenths, one's in the goes all the way to the hundreds, and then two of them go all the way to the thousands. So something else you can do to make that a little bit less confusing is just to add a zero, so they are all have the same number of place values, because that might help you visualize it a little bit better. It's not completely necessary, but it's something that you can do to help you make sure that you have things lined up with the decimal point and you have all your place values in line. Because if your place values aren't in line, then you're not going to be able to order them very well, because it gets a little confusing. So here we go. Now we're going to look first at our whole numbers. Well, we have a bunch of 13s and a 12, right? So I think this 12 we're going to have to deal with right away, since we're going to go least to greatest. So we have 12 and 655. Oh, that's the other thing. When you're doing ordering problems in your tests and in your math books, one of the very most important things to do is read your directions. So many kids don't read the directions, and then you do it wrong, and you spend all this time writing all these numbers, and you either get it wrong or you end up at the end of your problem and you're like, oh my gosh, I just read the directions and now I have to rewrite all of these numbers. So do yourself a favor and get right answers, and don't make silly errors, and read your directions. Does it say least to greatest or greatest to least? Okay. In these directions in my book, I carefully read them and they said least to greatest. So I am going to start out with that 12. And then I have 3 with 13. So then I go to the next place value over, because the tenths is the largest place value when it comes to the tenths, hundredths, and thousands. So I look here and I have an 8, a 0, a 6, and a 6 tenths. So I'm going to go with that 0. I think that one's the smallest one. So we have 13 and 67 thousandths will be my next number. Oops, 97 thousandths. Thank goodness I checked, double checked. There we go, 97 thousandths. Then I'm going to check that one off because I wrote it. And now the next one this one has one in the 6 tenths, so it's going to be 13 and 6 tenths there. And the last one has an 8 there, and that is 13 and 84 hundredths. And that does it. Okay, let's go to the next one below. This one I wrote a whole bunch of numbers that look a lot alike. So I'm going to take my advice that I had said earlier, and I am going to line those ones up. And these ones I wrote a little bit different sizes, so I'm going to have to be really careful and make sure they get lined up. So I wrote 32 and 41 thousandths. I wrote 32 and 140 thousandths, and 33 and 401 thousandths. Okay. Now again, I'm going to look at my whole numbers. If I'm going least to greatest, which I am in this case, I have a bunch of 32s to deal with. This 31, that's going to be my last one. I know that's going to be my greatest, so I might put a box around it and be like, oh, I'm not even going to look at you yet, because you're going to go in the very end. And then I'm going to look in my tenths place. And here I have a 4 and a 0 and a 1. So I think that 0 is the smallest. So I have 32 and 41 thousandths. And then you can check that one off. And then is the 4 or the 1 smaller? Well, I think the 1 is smaller. How about you guys? So we have 32 and 140 thousandths. And then I would go with that 401 thousandths, so we have 32, and 401 thousandths, and going back to my boxed one, that 33 and 401 thousandths, and then I have that in order. Oops. 401 thousandths. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to double check my work and make sure that my numbers all match up and make sure I wrote them correctly, because double checking your work will prevent you from silly errors, and boom, I did it. So here is my answer in least to greatest form, okay? I hope this helps in ordering your numbers. How out!